When I was younger, I used to be quite extroverted, but then something shifted within me that made me more introverted over the past couple of years, probably since I was about 12 years old. Since I first started school and I started trying to fit in with certain groups of people, trying to make new friends, started to become really self-conscious, really judgmental, and really self-critical about myself. And that kind of closed me off from people in the same way that I used to be when I was a really young child. And I think children can teach us a lot as adults. Like, we often put the things kids have to teach us down to their innocence, to their purity, to their lack of experience and their lack of being weighed down by life, because that's a saying that a lot of people talk about, you know. As they get older in age, they become wary of life, and that's not something I want for myself, and it's not something I want from you. And so I think we need to look back to our childhood in order to learn what we have forgotten. When I think about my childhood, specifically in primary school, all of the social interactions that I would have would be so good because I wouldn't really be thinking about myself. I'd just be present in the moment. I'd be joyful. I'd be grateful to be able to speak to people, to be able to play games, to be able to interact with other people, to be able to share ideas, to be able to learn, to be able to improve. And as we get older, our focus just centers more on ourselves, on how we're being perceived, on our judgments about things, on goals we have for the future, on wrongs and injustices we feel we have been victims of in the past, and things like this. I feel like as we get older, we become almost too mentally attached to the world and not present enough in it. And so I'm making this video as someone who I would consider is quite introverted, quite an introverted individual. But that doesn't mean that I can't be okay and hold my own in social interactions. And there are 3 tips that I want to give you in today's video that center around this question of how to be better in social interactions. And I'm making this video for anybody who wants to hear this, but obviously this is more directed at the introverts. People like myself, people who in the past may have really struggled with social interactions as a result of them feeling like they are outcasts, or them being too judgmental of themselves, or too critical of themselves, or just thinking about themselves too much. So the first tip is to listen more than you speak. The founder of Stoicism, the philosopher Zeno, famously said that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that we can listen more than we speak. It's really off-putting when you're in a conversation with somebody who you can tell is not really trying to understand your perspective. They're not trying to really listen to you. What they're doing is they're waiting for an ample opportunity for them to jump in with what they want to say. Now, this isn't a good way to be good in social interactions and to have good social interactions in general, because a social interaction is a mutual dance. It's reciprocal, it's back and forth. And you need to understand that if you're going to actually improve your social skills, you need to understand that you need to listen to other people. You need to try and fully understand their perspective before you make your judgments or before you say anything. You need to first listen. And so that's the first tip that I have for you, is listen more than you speak. And what you will find is people will actually open up more to you because they know you're actually a listener. You're actually going to listen to what they have to say. You're not just going to be waiting for a chance for you to jump in with your own narrative or your own agenda or your own perspective. You're actually going to listen to them, which draws people in. Number 2 is to speak slower. So I always had a problem with this when I was growing up. I even still struggle with this sometimes now. And it's often a reminder that I have to persist in reminding myself continually. When we speak too fast, we come off as needy, we come off as erratic, we come off as insecure because we're not secure in our knowing that people are actually going to hear us out, and so we're trying to get everything out as quickly as possible. But what that does is it slows down your ability and it impairs your ability to be able to process what you're actually going to say. And so when you are speaking really fast and you're really trying to get what you have to say out there, you're usually going to think less before you speak. You're going to jump at the opportunity when it's there. You know, when there is a silence, you're going to try and fill that gap as quickly as possible because you're not comfortable with the silence. And that's another thing that you need to be, is comfortable with the silence. You need to be okay when it is quiet. You need to be okay not saying anything if you don't think you have anything worth saying. And a lot of people, they just make conversation in order to make conversation, in order to ease the feeling of awkwardness that they feel. But you need to be okay with space. You need to be okay with silence. And you can actually learn to appreciate the silence. It's a very beautiful thing. It gives us space to think, reflect, and introspectively process things that we are not yet confident enough to put out there. And I understand that this desire and this habit of speaking fast, how it lures people in is it promises them, you know, immediate rewards. It's like, well, if you're able to speak quicker, then you're able to put more points on the board, and therefore you're able to articulate yourself better. But that's not the truth. We need to focus on quality over quantity. You know, there are certain people who speak so much, but it's so hard to find something real in what they say. Whereas there are certain people who don't speak much at all, but everything that they say is real and worthy. And I'd rather be that individual. And I think that individual commands more respect. And I think that individual is more in control of their tongue, of their mind, and of how successful and how good they are in social interactions. And so that's point number 2, is to speak slower. And actually keep reminding yourself of this, because what you'll find is when you forget, because we are so susceptible to forgetting what is important, it's actually crazy. We have to remind ourselves continually to return back to what is important. And speaking slowly is not a sign of, you know, a lack of intelligence or a sign of a lack of intellect or a lack of presence. What it actually is it's a sign of that. It's a sign of presence, because you're actually being mindful and being careful about what you were going to say. You're thinking about it deeply before you put it out there. You're not just spurting it out without thinking carefully about it. So that's tip number 2, is to speak slower. Tip number 3 is to be present. And now I know this is quite vague and ambiguous, but I'm going to try and break it down as best as I possibly can. I mentioned at the start of this video, what holds a lot of people back in social interactions and in feeling more comfortable in social interactions is that they're thinking too much about themselves and how they're being perceived. When you're able to quiet the thoughts that are pondering on how you're being perceived or judged, or, you know, whether what you're doing is being perceived in the way you would like it to be perceived, then you're actually able to be present in that moment. You're able to see it for what it really is, rather than your mental abstractions about what you think it is. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to be more effective in communication, in social interactions. It also allows you to do the first 2 steps, because if you're not present, you're not going to be able to remind yourself to speak a bit more slowly. And if you're not present, you're not going to be able to listen to the other person. And so presence is the key to being better at social interactions. And the way you be present is you try and quiet your thoughts. You try to get into what is commonly called a flow state, a state of no thought and really no mind, just presence, attention to what is going on around you, not your attention fixated on yourself, which comes across as really shallow to people and really insecure and unconfident. And by paying attention to what is going around you, you take the attention off yourself and how you're being perceived and how you're being judged. And so that's one of the keys to developing presence, is paying attention to what is going on around you, grounding yourself in your body, feeling the sensations that are going on in your body, like your breath, like the wind grazing against your skin, or like your feet touching the floor beneath you. These can also center you in your body, which centers you in the moment, because our sensations are only going on in the moment. What we can feel within our body is only going on in that moment. We are able to feel it. And so we do ground ourselves in the present moment when we bring ourselves back to the body, We bring ourselves back to the breath. We bring ourselves to paying attention to what is going on around us rather than keeping our attention fixated on us, because that closes us up. When we pay attention to what is going on around us, it opens us up. They're completely different. And so those are 3 small but powerful tips that you can use today to improve your social interactions with other people. Now, I'm not saying that I'm, a master of social interactions or something that you're not. But these are 3 tips that have really helped me as an introverted individual be more comfortable in social interactions. And I'm sure that they will be able to help you as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you like and subscribe and share this video with someone you think might need to hear this. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.